Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be nutty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Yo, buddy-os, it's time for another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. But this is a special episode because we're not in the Buddycast studio. No. We're live at Luminary Distillery with our buddy Joel. How you doing, Joel?
I'm doing well, Nick. Thanks.
Awesome. Glad to hear. Hey, Joel, just to let you know, you're not a guest on this show. You're a buddy.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, buddy,
Thank you.
Of course, buddy, you're the owner of Luminary Distillery. Tell us the history behind Luminary.
Absolutely. So my wife and I started Luminary Distilling. We established it in 2016. We opened our doors in 2017, actually in a slightly different spot than we currently are right now. We were in this plaza, but in a slightly different spot. But it was kind of a labor of love that we originally thought up in 2013, 2014, when we were doing winery and distillery tours throughout Northeast and around the New York area up there. And we had visited a distillery or two. And I've been making beer. I'm talking like in my basement beer, right? So craft brewing and home brewing since, probably like 2009 or 2010. I was kind of in the beer making industry, and I've dabbled some in distilling. So it was kind of this idea we came across in 2013, 2014, and through a couple of years of talking to banks and trying to get money. We didn't have really any money to do this, so it kind of started with very little. But talking to banks and doing plans and location after location, trying to find the right place, we came across the right place. And as I said, we opened up in 2017.
And not only did you find the right place, you now have 2 locations. Am I correct?
Yes, that we do. We have 2 locations. So originally we had about a 2,000 square foot place that, as I said, was in this plaza, but it was really just a bar and a production area. We quickly outgrew the space fast. We started kind of going up the walls a little bit with all of our shelving and everything like that. And the people who owned this plaza also owned Furman Cider, which we'll talk about in a second here. But we were in this plaza, but didn't own Furman Cider at the time. I was looking probably by 2019 or so for a larger production space, a larger area, maybe somewhere downtown. We had looked at a few places. And we started talking with the people who own Furman's, and they also own this plaza, who consequentially own what's called BSI, Building Systems Incorporated. They are building like everything in Erie. They've got a ton of business and a ton of money, and their family had owned this and was running it for about the last 10 years. And they essentially were tired of doing it. They talked to me about it. They knew I was looking for more space. We got the ball rolling before COVID, kind of talking about moving in here. Once COVID hit, we started going crazy, making hand sanitizer and doing that. We started talking again in mid-2020. We moved in here the fall of 2020 and started doing the cider and everything else. And that's currently where we are right now. We went from about 2,000 square feet to about 10,000 square feet.
Nice.
Everything. From cider to bakery to food to bottles to production to whatever you can really think of, too many things. In 2022, we opened up our downtown location in North Park Row as part of through the EDDC. And it was kind of a collaboration with somebody who used to be my lawyer, who was then on the EDDC team, said, hey, Joel, this would be a perfect location. We're looking for businesses to be down here. It's a completely different sort of thing down there. It's 400 square feet or 500 square feet, very small. It's a bottle shop, but you can get cocktails in there. It's seating for about 15 to 20 people. It's very intimate. I like to say it's a lot like what we originally had when we first opened in 2017. where you go in and you chat with the bartender for an hour or two and try some stuff. Here it's a little bit busier. We've got the restaurant and everything kind of going full bore. Now it's down there. It's just kind of like, tourists coming through, and we get some regulars coming through. But both locations have been successful. It's great.
Brilliant. You said you're home of Furman Cider. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So as I was getting back to the Schaffs who had owned this previous thing. They had purchased Furman Cider. People come in and say, well, I do Furman or something. It's been owned by so many people over the last 125 years. It's been around about 125 years, since the late 1800s. And it actually, the original location was on East Gore Road. It had burned down, I think, about 2005, if you guys were familiar with that. Maybe it was 2005, 2007. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but it was sometime around then. There was a huge fire, and a lot of people talk about it. And the kind of cider mill that they had there was cider mill, and they had I think they had some baked goods in there that they would bring in, but it was an interesting place. You get a lot of people coming in who was there 30, 40 years ago. They'd come in with tours, and they'd fill their own cider, and they'd bring their own apples. And some of the legalese has changed a bit in the last 20 years with pasteurization and things like that. But the Schaffs had purchased it from the previous owners in about 2005, 2007. And to their advantage, they had recently purchased our current location, this plaza, which was a fire company, Perry Hose Company, I believe. And it was a perfect spot for them to kind of bring production and everything too. So the current one had burned, or the original one had burned down. They weren't sure what they were going to do. We moved everything in, or they moved everything in, and had been producing it for about the last 10 to 12 years. They were tired of it. It was not a hugely profitable sort of thing. It's kind of like a distillery, a labor of love in a way. And it was difficult for them to, I think, manage time with running a multi-million-dollar business, building stuff, and also their family running us. Mm-hmm. They knew we wanted the space. They knew we were interested in it. But one of their caveats to us moving in is Tim Schaff was really into continuing that Furman's name going, Furman Cider. So he made sure that I was interested before doing anything in maintaining not only the brand, but also the consistency of it, the flavor, the production techniques. So we made sure we learned everything we needed to and used the same production techniques and the same apples, same growers of the apples. Probably not the same apples, but a lot of it's the similar stuff that they've been doing for decades. So that's kind of where Furman Cider came from. We purchased the name and the everything with it, and we've continued to do the cider, and we probably do about 10,000 gallons a year.
I was going to say, not only did you purchase the building, you purchased the cider. You purchased everything that goes with it.
Yeah. So we have all the equipment. I still rent, interestingly enough, from the Schaffs, which I'd love to eventually buy this or buy something nearby. But I own a lot of equipment, which is interesting, a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Nice. Now, you and me are having some drinks right now. Well, first off, before I get to that question, I want to give a quick shout out to my entourage back here. We have a nice little party going on. We have Mama Buddy. We have the First Lady. We have Daddy Buddy, and we have a lot of other buddies up in the background. So quick shout out to them.
A lot of buddies.
Yes. But what are you and me drinking right now? You're drinking something. I'm drinking something. Tell us about that.
So we'll begin with your drink, Nick. It is a Italian Stallion Moscow Mule. It's kind of our signature sort of drink here. Not so much the Italian Stallion, but Moscow Mules in general. Mm-hmm. With our menu, we probably have 10 to 15 different Moscow Mule options on our menu, on our drink menu, which is pretty extensive. It's a couple pages long. And all the spirits that we make here, we use in the drinks that we have here. So we don't just do vodka and whiskey. We wanted to cover every base of alcohol that we could. So we wanted to do margaritas, so maybe we better make something like a tequila. We wanted to do something like a hurricane. Hey, we better make a rum. So we wanted to make sure we covered every base, and subsequently we make 12 or 13 different spirits. In your particular cocktail, what makes something a Moscow Mule is not only the cup, but ginger beer is kind of the mixer that goes along with it. So the ginger beer is what makes it a Moscow Mule, but it's our Gem City vodka as well as Luminary Limoncello that we make. So it's our Italian dessert lemon liqueur that goes into it. My drink, I'm drinking an old-fashioned, a rye old-fashioned, which we make the rye whiskey here. It's rye, a little bit of simple syrup. We go with maraschino and Luxardo cherry juice, the expensive cherries, the Luxardos. along with some muddled orange, and it's one of your stiffer drinks, one of the stronger ones. So this is a traditional 100-year-old drink, while mules are more of the 50s. They became popular in the 1950s. Mine's from the 1800s sometime. So there's a whole history of cocktails that we can go into. It's not too crazy.
Yeah. So everything that goes into these drinks is made here. There's nothing like, soy-bought or, something. Everything.
Well, we have to buy certain stuff.
Yeah.
So all the alcohols that we produce that go into our drinks, we make here. So vodka, gin, whiskey, liqueurs, rum. What we call our tequila, it's really agave. We can't call it tequila. There's a whole issue with naming things after proprietary names. Can't call it scotch. We have to call it smoked barley malt. Can't call it tequila. We have to call it agave because it's not made in a certain area, like Mexico. You have to make it in Mexico. But anyways, we make all the alcohols that go in here, but I always have to buy things like mixers. So I have to buy orange juice, a million juices. I have to get all of our fruits. I have to get all of our garnishes or cherries, everything like that. We do serve beer, local PA beer. So of all the breweries around here, we serve things like from Lavery, which you probably talked to at some point, or Nostrovia, Erie Ale Works, brewery at Union Station. So we do the local stuff. We also do local wineries. So we're allowed to serve local wine and beer for on-site consumption. So it's not like a restaurant, a full-scale bar, essentially. So
I will have to tell you, you are the second to be on Buddycast. We talked to Chris Sirianni from Erie, but you are the second. So
we work closely with Chris. A lot of the ginger beer that you're having now in your Moscow Mule comes from the brewery at Union Station. So we get kegged ginger beer from Chris and crew there. So we work closely with Chris, and they take care of us. They buy and serve our alcohol for on-site consumption, our apple pie moonshine, and some of our liqueurs. And we also have one of their beers on draft here, their Uncle Jackson Blonde.
Ooh, one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So now, I know this is like asking who's your favorite child, but what are some of your favorite drinks on the menu? Like, what are some that you would highly recommend if someone came in here and had no idea what they wanted, couldn't make up their mind?
So you're always safe going with the Moscow Mule, unless you have some sort of aversion to ginger. Those are always an easy-to-drink sort of cocktail. I used to like sweeter, more recent stuff, and that was simple too. Like I'd like rum and Coke and something like that. Since I've been running the distillery and making a lot of the different alcohols, I've really grown more accustomed to some of your stiffer ones. Your gin martinis, I really enjoy. We've got things like old fashions I like. Manhattans aren't bad. I'm not as much a fan of the Manhattans. I don't like sweet vermouth as much. But I don't know. I tend to like those sort of cocktails. Nothing too sweet. It hurts my stomach. And to be honest with you, when I'm not drinking hard alcohol, which isn't very often anyways, I'll drink beer. I like beer. It's simple. But in regards to our spirits, I really like our gin. I used to not do well with gin, but I really like the gin we do. And so any cocktail with that, I enjoy.
Yeah, nothing beats a good gin and tonic.
Yes. I had a couple of those on the 4th of July, actually.
Ooh.
So it was nice. Yeah.
I like it. So on top of all these drinks, you also have a full food menu. Tell us about that.
So we do everything from appetizers to soups to pizzas to handhelds to burgers. We also have some entrees that we have on there too. So it's not just fried bar food. We try to limit that as much as we can. So we do everything from steaks to chicken dinners to pasta meals, things like that. And as I look over at the table, I see scallops as an appetizer over risotto. Yeah. And we've got a chicken with like a salsa thing on it. Bruschetta, chicken bruschetta. I wish I knew my menu better. And we've got burgers, and Reubens are always very popular. But I think what's fascinating is we try and take it to the next level. We do our best in that a lot of the breads that we have for our items, for instance, like our rye bread for our Reubens, our brioche buns for our burgers, our pizza shells that we use, we make here in house. We've got a bakery, and so our baker comes in and cranks out tons of these breads. And we also sell them to some of the businesses around town. But primarily, it's something that we can make here in-house, and I think it adds a certain flavor to what we do. So.
You touched on my next question, which is the bakery. You also have an in-house bakery. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was originally to start kind of a Furman's carryover where they had a full-scale bakery with like 3 or 4 very large display cases. They would do everything from pies to like specialty cakes to donuts very regularly. It was a common stopover. And they were open probably at 6 or 7 in the morning, I think, for a lot of this. When we purchased it and moved in, we wanted to keep the bakery, especially a lot of the stuff for dinner and for the foods we make here. But we wanted to carry on the bakery, especially the donut portion of it. It goes very well with cider, so we wanted to maintain that sort of thing. And so we basically took those 3 display cases, cut it down to 1, and eliminated a lot of the waste that they would have at the end of the day. So if you could imagine, filling up 15 shelves full of baked goods, very rarely do they ever sell even most of it. So they'd be tossing a whole lot of it. We would take the most popular items, the 8 to 12 most popular things, and really just focused on those. And that's kind of what our bakery has become. It's a little bit more specialty. We still do pies. We still do specialty cake and cookie orders. We've had on a really incredible cookie decorator, Kim, who does these large orders of hundreds of cookies. People call in, and it's for weddings, and it's for special events, and for companies. And she's able to replicate logos and things really, really neat. And she's also able to do things like wedding cakes, which is incredible. So we can do smaller ones, typically like the kind you see at like the sweetheart table thing, not like a full-blown 5-tier thing that looks like it's going to fall over. We're talking about the smaller ones that couples are going to have at the table, right? So it's but she does an incredible job decorating these things. I mean, we've had a lot of the same recipes we use with our breads and things like that. We've maintained for at least as long as the bakery has been active, which is the last 15 years. So prior to that, I'm not sure what the original one had bakery-wise, but they started a good bakery and we continued it.
Nice. Number one, donuts and cider is my next birthday meal.
There you go.
Or my next birthday breakfast. Number 2, you will have to pass along her name. The First Lady and I are getting married in September.
Oh, there you go.
So,
congrats. We've got
you.
some fun options for you. So
Yeah.
we've done weddings and we can do cakes and we can do like specialized little labels for like our apple pie and our little luminary labels that say like congratulations, Nick and Jessica. So and it'll have the date on it and things like that. It's just it's cute stuff that people love and like as wedding favors. So congrats on the upcoming nuptials.
Thank
Exciting,
you,
guys.
Thank you very much. Well, like I said, we'll definitely keep you in mind. Or
Yeah,
pass
we'd
along.
love to help you out. Let me know.
Awesome. We'll have to, also, you said she can replicate the logo. You can replicate this logo. on the
I
front
think
of it.
she could replicate the Buddycast logo. I believe. You mean the one with the glasses?
The
Like
guy with the
top there?
glasses right there in the
Yeah,
corner.
you
Mhm.
right there. Yeah, awesome.
We also have the logo designer right in the background too.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of you guys does the logo design?
The gentleman with the glasses
way
back
back,
there.
way back.
Yep.
Yeah. What's up, man? That's awesome. So yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on this. We've talked about all the cocktails, or pretty much majority of them, but some of them are award-winning. Tell us about that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was just going and talking with my sales director about we were filling out some stuff and saying, okay, what won something? And we typically don't. We'll submit things to competitions, international and national competitions. And I guess the thing is we really don't brag much about winning them. We do have the medals like hanging, I think, on our one shelf out there, but it's not like, hey, look, we won a bunch of stuff. We've won a couple bigger ones. So we've won for our Gem City vodka, our wheat vodka. We won a gold medal and an ADI one, which is American Distilling Institute. We've won silvers for our limoncello, is also like a best in class for our limoncello. We've won for our coffee liqueur. I think silver and bronze medals. We've won for our brandy that we do, our wine-based brandy. That I think we won a silver medal for that one. I've won for a bunch of our canned cocktails as well. So one of the things that we inevitably started kind of branching into, aside from the bottled spirits that we can sell for on-site consumption or to go at both locations that we have, are canned cocktails and Moscow mules that are in 12-ounce cans, and we can ourselves. So we won for our blueberry limoncello Moscow Mule. We won for we worked with, and I think you talked with her on one of your previous ones, Rebecca Stein with the Flying Tiger.
Yep.
We worked with her, her non-alcohol craft mixers. We would actually put gin with them and do them in cans. So you can see them out there. They say Flying Tiger, but also our name. It contains alcohol. It's 12% alcohol. It's like a true bee's knees cocktail. It's pretty incredible. We won, I think, a silver medal with that, and I think we won a bronze medal with the South Side, which is like a minty one that they do. So not only do we do the bottles, but we've also kind of delved into the cocktail sort of thing, because people want something accessible to drink, right? And that's one of the things that Luminary is trying to do, is that, hey, whenever you come in here, we're not just like a winery where you go and buy a bottle, right? We want to be able to educate the people coming in. I used to be a teacher. I'm into talking. I like an audience.
You come to the right show for that.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. But I want to be able to educate people and say, hey, there's more than you can just do with rye whiskey rather than put it in a glass and drink it, right? You can make something incredible like an old fashioned. And we like to talk about the recipes and how we do a little different and the production techniques. So we want to turn something that's a little confusing and overwhelming to people into something that's approachable. And we found that some people just want a canned cocktail, something that they can easily drink out of. But to answer your question, we won some awards here and there. We don't enter a ton of them, but when we do, we make sure it's something that we know is going to go well.
Wonderful. That's a good follow-up question. Talk to us about the processes. Talk to us about like the distilling process. Talk to us about the brewing process. Like anything that you can just give us a little education on.
Of course. So I did mention that when I first started with this, I started with brewing. And fermentation is kind of the key that you need to do. So your best distiller should have some background in fermentation of beer and wine and things like that. Really, all you're doing with distillation, whenever you're distilling something, or the distillery is, because this is confusing. A lot of people come in and say, what do you brew here? Or what beers do you do? I'm like, I don't do beer. I can't do beer legally. My license has to have a distilled product if I'm going to bottle it or sell it or something. So all a distiller does is take something that's been fermented, like beer or like wine or like mead or any sort of product that's gone through a fermentation process, which is basically take something that has sugar in it and add yeast, right? That produces alcohol. That alcohol is what we take a step further. So to distill something, and if you see the equipment behind us, you've got this one copper still right here I'm pointing at. Essentially, all it is a contained vessel. You put something that has alcohol in a contained vessel, and you heat that vessel up, right? It's not closed, meaning there's a top to it, but it's got a pipe that goes around, and it's an open system. So you would never want something closed that's pressurized. We're not pressure cooking anything. But the idea is you take that and you heat it up. Now, alcohol is something very important about it, and what's important about it is that it has a lower boiling point than water. So if you got it up to 212 degrees, you'd be boiling water and steam would be coming off. But at about 170 degrees, alcohol starts to separate and turn to steam. And that's very important, once again, because the water stays behind and the alcohol starts to rise. And since it's closed like this, and it goes up through this, the steam, you can actually feel it, like it's 180 degrees, goes through this thing, and it would come out as steam, except you pass cold water around it. So you create this, it's called a condenser, but essentially you pass cold water on the outside of it. It makes it rain, essentially, alcohol. So you've separated this alcohol, and maybe it started down here in the vessel at 10%. Maybe it was like a very strong beer or something. It comes off at like 70, 80% alcohol and condenses. It comes out at a much higher proof. So that's where you're getting your distilled spirit. Based on what was in that vessel in the first place will entirely determine what alcohol you have afterwards. So if I'm putting wine in there, you have brandy that comes off. If I put something like beer that's fermented from grain, you have a whiskey. If I put corn or whatever in there, I could have a couple different things. I could have a bourbon that I could age, or I could distill it a different way and make it a really high proof and create a vodka. So interestingly enough, you can come up with all kinds of different stuff. But distillation, it's kind of an art and a science at the same time. You start with it as a science because you're basically doing chemistry, but then it turns into an art based on things like flavor and stuff like
Nice. And are you still in touch with like the cider process, like everything like that?
Oh yeah. So I do have a head distiller who I've hired on here, as well as kind of the head cider guy. But if you come in any day, it's us doing the distilling and the cider production. I kind of get bounced around all over the place, from party planning to making sure the kitchen's doing what it needs to do, to bringing in supplies and doing whatever. But in the same right, I play an active role in both the cider production, which is incredibly labor intensive,
Nice.
as well as the production of all the alcohol.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we're in the party room right now, correct?
We are in a party room, so it's set aside from our main restaurant area. The restaurant area can seat maybe 70 or 80 people. We've got a bar in there. This party room can sit about 15 to 18. Starts to be uncomfortable about 18. And it's just kind of a room set aside that looks into our distilling area and lets people kind of hang out and do their own thing. Like
Nice.
we are.
What can people rent it out for?
If you're a Mule Team member, which is kind of like our mug club,
Ooh.
it's free. Otherwise, if you want a 4-hour window, it's about $50.
Nice.
So,
And what parties have you seen go on through here?
okay, so we've had everything. Somebody actually had a little wedding in here.
Ooh.
Interestingly, they did a little ceremony in here. It was a bit strange. We've had meetings for like sports teams in here, and we even have like coach meetings where they'll have things come in. Businesses will rent us out to come in and do things. They'll do little presentations. We've got a TV up there with a little thing to present. We've done private parties, standing room only sort of thing, where there's like 25 or 30 people kind of hanging out in here drinking. Retirement parties, anything you can really think of.
Bachelor parties?
I don't know if we have had a bachelor party in here and out there. Nothing too crazy goes on back here yet. It is separate. I do get that. So I'm sure we could have some interesting festivities going on in here, but nothing too off the wall, aside from a wedding, I guess. A bit bizarre.
So, buddy, I got 2 more questions for you to make this an official Buddycast, and then
Sure.
I want to do something special at the end of the episode, which I already mentioned to you.
Absolutely.
beforehand. The first one is brought to us by my buddy Jones Kane at #Positivity. He
Okay.
wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
#positivity.
Look it up.
I'll check it out. So you had mentioned that you would ask a question very similar to this, and I did some thinking on it. And originally, when I hear the term buddy, I think in the past it was more of a negative term, right?
Hey,
Setting passing, like, hey buddy, get the hell away from me, that sort of thing, like, where it was not in a term of endearment. I think more recently, and maybe it's something that comes with age and patience and that sort of thing. A buddy is somebody who is definitely, or more likely, going to be somebody from your past. Somebody who, to me personally here, somebody from your past who you don't get to see very often, but they're important to you, and you can kind of pick things up right where they've always been, and that they're always there for you, that sort of thing. But you don't always have to be like, it's kind of an understanding that you have. That's probably the best way for me to describe it. And what I've also kind of learned as well is that you can tell a buddy, I think, within, and this is something more recent, I think, within 5 minutes of meeting them. So as soon as I met you, I'm like, I gotta give you a buddy.
Hey, like I told you,
it makes sense.
You're not a guest on the show. You're a buddy.
Yeah. So it certainly is something that I guess I didn't really give a lot of thought about, but if you put it in the right terms, it's an important part of your social structure.
Exactly. And now, buddy, we've come to what I call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
For anyone out there who wants to own their own business like a distillery, who wants to follow their dream, open a restaurant, make their own drinks, what's your advice to them?
All right. So I think if you're going into the alcohol industry in general, we could probably spend an entire podcast talking about this.
Ooh, follow.
Yeah. So the distilled spirit industry that I'm currently in, it's still kind of in an explosive mode, right? There's a lot of places coming, no pun intended, you hope things don't blow up. But it's still pretty rapidly growing. I think it's starting to reach a saturation point in a lot of places. A lot of craft breweries were around 25 years ago. And in this area, wineries in the past 10 to 20 years, they've probably tripled in how many they Distilleries, we were the first one in 2017 to open our doors, and now there's 4 in Erie County alone. I would say do your research. If you are going to open one, approach a place that's already been open. It's incredibly time consuming, and you have to have quite a bit of money, $200,000 probably if you want to do it right. If you're kind of doing it on shoestrings, you could do it maybe $50,000 or $100,000, but it's going to be a lot of teeth pulling. And there's a lot of weird stuff you don't even realize that come along with it. You're not just a boutique that sells stuff, right? You have to have all the merchandise. You have to have all the glassware. You want to have a bar, something like that. A lot goes into it. And the licensing is still not easy. So you have to go through both the state with the PLCB and the federal government with what they call the TTB. The Tax and Trade Bureau. You'd think it'd be like ATF, like alcohol, tobacco. No, it's the Treasury Department, because it's a money-making thing. You have to go through licensing with them, and it typically takes 3 to 6 months just to start that. So people say, I don't open a distillery. Once you make that decision and say, I'm going to do this, you got to add at least 2 years onto your initial, like, hey, this is how long it's going to take.
It can't just be something you wake up tomorrow, I'm going to open a distillery.
Yeah, it's not an easy task. I would say go talk to distillers, be open and honest about it, that you're coming in and interested in doing it. And from what I've found, brewers and people who deal with wine, vintners, they're very open to talking about it as long as you approach them with an open, honest personality, and they'll give you their 2 cents. I would say don't get involved with the distillery industry, but alcohol still is a very big thing. Bars and restaurants and mixology and things like that. There's a lot of room for unique sort of business ventures that people can do, but definitely talk to some professionals about it before you start making that decision to open a distillery. It's a lot of work.
Talk to the pros. Get the advice from the pros before you make any sudden jumps.
It might be a good idea.
So, buddy, you know how I want to end today's episode? I want to end today's episode with a special toast. If you can all behind me, raise your glasses. Tomorrow is a special anniversary. Well, 2 special anniversaries. Number 1, it's the day that my little brother was born. So a happy birthday to my brother Matthew out there. He's the best man in the wedding. He's a fantastic gentleman. He's grown so much. He's got a great job. He's really become a true man. So a happy birthday toast to him. But also tomorrow is sadly the anniversary of my grandfather's passing. But I'm making this a positive encounter because my grandfather is the reason behind Buddycast. He gave me the name Buddy. Anytime I came in anywhere, hey, Buddy, how's it going? He treated everyone he knew like a buddy. He made everybody his buddy. No one was a stranger to him. If he walked into this party room, he would look for the people that are sitting alone, kind of get that look on their face like, 5 more minutes and I'll find an excuse to leave. And he would sit right next to them, making them feel like the life of the party. Nice. You call him up anytime, he's a glad conversation. So I just want to give a toast to my buddy. If you could all raise your glasses back there, to the true buddy, and to Buddycast, and to Joel for making this all possible.
What was your grandfather's name?
Robert.
To Robert. Right. Cheers.
There we go. Cheers. And to all our buddies out there, cheers from Buddycast. And Joel, before we end this episode, I ask all my buddies that come on the show, I have one favor to ask you. Whatever we do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, or even next year, please promise me you're going to go out and you're going to be someone's buddy.
I promise you I will go out and be somebody's buddy.
Solid. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Joel from Luminary Distillery. Please, Upper Peach Street. What's the address?
8270 Peach Street.
On Upper Peach Street, you won't regret it. This is a fantastic Italian stallion. As a Rocky fan, I got to say I approve. So I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on another episode of everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. Don't feel none, it can make it, buddy, here on Buddy.